Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Myers of the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship, and I'm delighted today to be talking with Michelle Mellinger, who is a new friend through various conferences and Oxfordian interests. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you,
Um,
Bob.
Look forward to actually starting off with uh, if you can recite briefly how you sort of came to look at the question of authorship as opposed to just attending plays and thinking about stuff.
I think it started for me with the fact that I really couldn't understand a lot of Shakespeare. I knew that he was the greatest author of the English language, and I knew how respected he was, and that there was a, a whole institution surrounding the history of him and his works. But I couldn't really get into the plays very well. I think it's because I was just an ordinary kid who got an ordinary public school education, which sadly is very limited when it comes to introduction to Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So, so I just wanted to understand the plays and not have to refer to my dictionary every third word.
Where was public school for you?
I went to public school in Baltimore,
Yeah.
most of the time outside of Baltimore. Yeah.
Hmm.
hmm
I was in public school in New York, and we had classes in Shakespeare and stuff like that, but I was always a skeptic as to authorship because I couldn't believe I was studying so hard and my classmates were studying so hard, and this guy has no education and is putting out such beautiful words and sentences and sense of history.
hmm
That's what kind of got to me.
hmm
What was the first breakthrough for you into who actually wrote this?
Um, let's see. I think it probably started when I was going to college and I went to a Catholic university, I had a very liberal arts background, majored in broadcasting and theater.
Hmm.
And there were some people in my classes who kind of questioned the professors about um, some of the lack of connection between the story of this guy from Stratford upon Avon and the plays themselves, because clearly the plays um, had to be written by someone who had access to the court of Queen Elizabeth, someone who was educated and someone who had a library. And there really were very few people who owned books even in those days.
Yeah,
So
very
I
true.
think that sort of started my journey. Um, and then I graduated and got a job at a radio station
Oh,
in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was a reporter and a talk show host there. And my boss asked me to interview an actor who was coming into town to study Douglas MacArthur because he was going to play the general in a film called Inchon.
hmm.
So he said, get your tape recorder, get your steno pad, get together, all your thoughts, because this is Laurence Olivier. And I think I probably peed my pants. I was overwhelmed and scared to death.
Yeah.
Um, I had these old VHS tapes at home, and they were just starting to have these video clubs like the Columbia Video
Yeah.
Club. Do you remember those? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, I looked through my collection to see if I had anything that I could watch that had him in it, and I tried to prepare myself as best I could. And I arrived the next day at the MacArthur Memorial, which is in Norfolk, Virginia. General MacArthur's mom is from Norfolk,
Hmm.
and he was a real mama's boy. I don't know if you know the story that his mother
I
actually
don't.
followed him to West Point, and she took a room directly across from his room in the dormitory
Oh my gosh.
and would watch where he had his desk and the light set up to make sure he was doing his studies. Because his father, I think his father was a like a general as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was devoted to his mom. He ended up being buried there, and the memorial in Norfolk has a museum. It has archives. It has his letters and books, and it has such an extraordinary collection of Asian war booty. I'd recommend anybody who gets down there to take a look at it.
Oh,
So, so I went there, and I see this kind of older, fragile looking man leaning over one of the display cases, and that was him.
wow.
Um, and we talked, and I interviewed him, and he kind of led the conversation and told me about the research he was doing for MacArthur, and we talked about MacArthur's eccentricities, uh,
Hmm.
and then I asked him what was his favorite role that he ever played, and he said something to the effect of, "Well, that must be Shakespeare. It had to be Shakespeare."
Okay.
And uh, so as I was walking him out, I got up the nerve to ask him basically to tell him that I had problems understanding Shakespeare and believing that Shakespeare from Stratford upon Avon, Shakespeare was the family name,
Yeah.
Shakespear, that he was the guy. It didn't connect for me. And I had always learned in college that writers write about what they know. And so this guy from Stratford upon Avon, he was a small town person, he was a business person, but he wasn't literate, at least didn't look like it, couldn't find any letters and manuscripts in his hand. I think only we only have like six signatures, is that correct?
Is
Um,
it six or eight? But
yeah, and
it's
they're
a
all
small
sort of
number.
scribbled.
Right.
And they don't even, I don't think they even spelled them the same. And you just imagine somebody writing
Yeah.
thousands of words and not being able to, write their own name. So, I said to him, I can't connect with it. And I have my doubts. And he said, you have to learn your history of the period. And then he said, and read Hamlet and read it again.
Ah.
And then he got into the car and smiled at me, and he was off, and it made such an impression on me. Um, I was intimidated, and I was feeling a little confirmed too, because there was something in his directing me to Hamlet that
Hmm.
made me feel like I could find the tidbits, the little breadcrumbs
Yeah.
that would lead me to the real Shakespeare.
And no one would ever ignore Sir Lawrence's please to read Shakespeare and then read Shakespeare, Hamlet and then read Hamlet.
Hamlet. He said Hamlet.
Did you read Hamlet
I
again?
did. I did. I read it again and I read it again. And I started to kind of connect the dots with some of the people who are writing about authorship theories.
Hmm.
So, there was Bacon and there was Marlowe, and I think Stanley too, correct? Philip
His name
Stanley.
pops up, and
Yeah.
certainly,
And so I tried to connect the dots, and I did a lot of studying about the history of the period and talked to my sister a lot, who was really into the Tudors and the
hmm,
Queen's story, and I learned
wow.
a lot from her. And then shortly after studying a little bit more, I did some online research. And now we're getting to how I kind of connected with everybody in
That was
Shakespeare.
my cat coming by, but I'd like to hear about your online research.
Mhm. Okay.
Pussycat, you can't come by.
Well, my cat may come by too.
Oh, good. Well, maybe we can have a cat meeting.
Yeah.
So,
So, first I started with trying to understand the Tudors and what was going on in the period. And then I sort of went down a rabbit hole looking for the connection between Queen Elizabeth and Shakespeare. And there were a lot of things online about the theory that Queen Elizabeth was the Dark Lady in the sonnets.
hmm.
And that kind of directed me toward the people that were around her, that surrounded her. And somehow the name Edward de Vere popped up.
Oh.
Adorable cat, by the way.
All right. You had your moment in the sun. Go away.
Yeah.
Um,
So, all this time I felt like I was kind of alone and a little bit nuts because
yeah.
I didn't know that there were people out there that were doing any research about it. And I was really busy with my life. I had a hard job and I was getting a grad degree and I had a baby.
Hmm.
And so I really didn't, I didn't connect with all the dots. I didn't know what was happening. And I didn't even know where to start looking because I wasn't a historian and I
Right.
wasn't an English teacher.
Right. Right. It is hard. I mean, because when you get into the Elizabethan and Tudor periods, there is so much stuff, and you kind of don't know where to start. And to me, so much of it is, well, we know only so much about this and only so much about that. And there was that big fire, and that knocked out a lot of London. And then it's really hard.
Mhm.
As I said, I started out as a skeptic. I didn't know um, who the author was, but I just certainly knew it wasn't William Shakespeare of Stratford, who had the amazing coincidence of having been born and died on the same day, years apart, obviously, but it was April 23, I think. And um, and then there are these weird images of him in the churches, which shift over time, telling me not too many people knew who he was.
How
Um,
early was that you started doubting and
well,
kind of exploring?
I thought when I was in high school that I would be an English teacher and a focus on Shakespeare.
Mm.
But as I kept trying to look at who Shakespeare had been, who he was, none of it made sense. And so I thought, well, I think I'll shift my area of inquiry. Um, and there was the same thing in college. I had weird situation where I attended the first 2 years of college in one place and got a not very good education. Then I transferred to UCLA and tried to make up for what I had missed at a very good school. But because I had missed a lot and I wanted to graduate on time, I didn't take that many Shakespeare classes. But sometime, and so one of the things I did to try and catch up was I subscribed to the Times Literary Supplement. Well, I was working as a book clerk. It was very expensive, but it would, but I found it very educational. And one day I saw an ad in the classified section of the Times Literary Supplement, way in the back, for a guy who was researching where the Earl of Oxford had lived, what his furniture was, etc. And I think there was some identifier in there that said he's often said to be the author behind Shakespeare. So I wrote to him and I said, I don't want to buy your furniture or buy anything like that, but I'm really interested in the subject of authorship. Can you please direct me? And so he made some suggestions. And it turned out we had this very nice correspondence over 5 or 6 years. Then I got a note saying that the gentleman had died and that he was blind for the last 10 years of his life as a consequence of, I guess, World War II, and that my letters to him had been read by his nurse to him, and that she had taken the dictation for his letters to me, and that's how I got them, and I have them saved.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great story. Wow.
yeah,
He must
really.
have really wanted to communicate with you to go to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
trouble.
So, actually, now that I'm happily retired, and I hope through the novel that I'm working on, I will have time to do things like research his life.
Mhm.
And his name was R. Ridgegill Trout, Trout. And he was fairly well known as an antiquarian in
Mm.
London during that time. From that, I guess the first thing I read was Margot Anderson's Shakespeare by Another Name. Now, there actually happened to be a coincidence here in that this was 1972, I believe. And I lived in Los Angeles. I was working in Washington. I got a tryout job in a senator's office. Would I want to be an assistant press secretary? Well, the answer was I liked Washington, but I really wasn't very good at doing that. Senator so and so is delighted to announce that the price of cow milk has gone up. That's not for me. Um, but but I was in Washington, and then somewhere I read that that was the 50th anniversary of the Shakespeare Fellowship in the UK. Now you subtract 50 years, you subtract 50 from 72, and you get 1922. 1922 was the year that that the Shakespeare Fellowship was started, keyed to the research done by J. Thomas Loney.
Mhm.
And he was a member of this club, and a lot of interesting material was there. So they were having a conference, a celebration. So I said, why not? I don't have any money anyway. That's the best time to spend it. So so I went over to London and met a whole bunch of authors, British and American, um, who were involved and had stayed in touch with them. So that sort of got me on the track of that. And from the London group, I learned about a group here in Washington, where I now live, and was in touch with them and have sort of followed along. I'm at this stage purely an observer, a lurker, as we say in the computer world now.
Well, I
Um,
have to tell you that I really love the video you did that's sort of your 101 class.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
thank
your
you.
introduction to the topic. I hope more people will look for that on YouTube. It's wonderful and it's a great way to enter into the discussion and start thinking about the authorship question.
Well, thank you. It resides on the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship YouTube website with a whole bunch of other fascinating stuff. Since I used to be a freelance writer, and it sounds like you were a freelance media journalist, who are some of the other people you interviewed that you found particularly interesting, whether they were Shakespeareans or Oxfordians or not?
Well, the range of people that I've had an opportunity to interview is just incredible. I've really been privileged. I've interviewed three presidents, and
Wow,
I've interviewed Catherine Graham, and I've interviewed Grand Wizards, and I've interviewed Larry King, who was a bit of a mentor for me when I first started
oh,
out.
really? Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Oh, it really it runs the gamut because when I was in Norfolk, I did a lot of work that was military oriented because the largest naval base in the world, Norfolk Naval Base, is there. And there was a great focus on veterans for me.
Mhm.
And then I went overseas and I was a stringer for some radio stations when I lived in Jerusalem, and I was there for a year. And that was a wonderful experience. I interviewed many, many people who were connected with the peace process, um, shows how old I am, but that was shortly after Sadat was assassinated.
Ooh, right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, and then I came back and started working more for communications in the communications field for nonprofits and for
oh.
organizations.
Hmm.
So I was the director of communications and development for the Jewish war veterans of the USA.
Hmm.
And I worked for Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. You can see the trend here, veteran, veteran, veteran.
Yeah.
Did a lot of work helping nonprofit organizations start in the Jewish world. And then I got a job at the Department of Veterans Affairs. That was my last gig. I was a communications director in the Veterans Health Administration,
Hmm.
21 years at the VA.
Oh, well, were you based in Washington
I
or?
was.
Yeah, great. Oh,
Right,
wonderful.
right.
So I have a Larry King story, and then I'll just share it briefly, and then I'm sure you've got other things to do. I'd written a book, and he was going to interview me. This is when he had his midnight to 3 a.m. show,
Hmm.
which was broadcast from.
Florida.
Uh, no, he had moved here.
Ah,
He had studios in Arlington,
okay.
and uh, the book was called Like Normal People, and it was about my family. My younger brother is mentally handicapped, and sort of the family's struggle to achieve as much normality for my brother and his wife, who was
Mm-hmm.
then new,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still together. Um,
Great.
and so I was to go on the King show. Now, in those days, I mean, you're young and vigorous and say, "Oh, I can stay up, late." Well, I mean, to start an interview at midnight, and then it goes until 2 in the morning. But I must tell you, it was one of the best interviews anyone has ever done with me on any subject because, and in fact, I said to him afterwards, how did you do it? You ask questions so easily and you seem to have such knowledge. He said, well, I never read the books ahead of time, and I just want to pull the information out of you. And he did. And
Mhm.
it was really terrific. I ran into him several times after that. And in fact, I ran into several of his ex-wives after that. And I always told him and them, I said it was one of the best interviews I'd ever had. So if Edward DeVere were here, I'd want Larry King to interview him.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
well,
Hmm.
thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's
Well,
been
thank
very
you, Bob, for
interesting.
inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure. And I'm going to see you soon at a conference here in Washington, I think.
Yeah, well, Seattle. Is it?
Seattle, that's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All
Right.
right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.